Hey everybody, thanks for coming back. Today I want to show you guys a little something about putting your licks together to construct them so that you enjoy what you hear and you like what you get and you can move on to grow into a nice lick writer. So if you know some scales and you've tried to put some things together but maybe you just don't like what you get or you want to just get something better, or you can do something like that already but you just want to make it sound different, you want to grow with your playing, you want some explanation as to why maybe things are hard to find sound wise, or how do you find certain sounds that you hear. I'm going to cover a little bit of everything today regarding putting some licks together. It's certainly something we cannot cover in a lesson or two, but I will do my best to give you some insight and some tips on some ways you can improve your lick writing. Things you just put together that, short your little clips, and the things that might go in between all your riffs, the little pieces in between. Everything from just a simple little thing that means nothing to an actual piece you might be putting in one of your songs. So we're going to go over everything a little bit, like I said, a little of everything on how to write various types of licks and get some different sounds. Because as I've said, if you're struggling to get more than the sound you're getting the same sound all the time, or you're struggling to get more sound and you don't understand how, I'm going to give you some different ways that you can begin doing that today, right away. So let's just get right into it. The first thing I do is I have to admit I have GPS, so every now and then you're going to just see stuff like because I do have that guitar player syndrome thing, and every now and then I just like to poke in with a little. I can't help it. It's just the way it is, So if you want a different type of channel where the guys edit everything and it's all proper, go ahead. But I'm not a real big computer guy, and I don't edit, and I don't have a big team working behind me to do all that stuff, and so that's why, it is what it is. But you learn here, and that's what matters, right? Because you're not there to just, watch videos for nothing. You're usually searching for something that's going to help you play better, and that's what I'm here to help you do on a simple level. So I don't do much editing at all, if you notice. All right, so let's get right into a few basic things. I'll start with the simple stuff, and then if you want to, you can just scroll on through and get to the stuff that matters to you. The most basic thing we're going to start with is a simple pentatonic box. I'll use a couple different boxes since we know the tried, true, tired first one is very popular. Some people get tired of that first box, but we're going to start there for the guys that are looking to do something very basic. So we'll just start with some. We'll start with B minor, then we'll move to E minor maybe. I like B minor just for something different than E minor all the time, even though E minor is the most popular key. B minor is pretty popular too, and it sounds great. Iron Maiden loves that key, so hey, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. So I'm just going to start there. And the first thing I'm going to explain to you is when you play a pentatonic lick, 90% of them are in the minor side of the key. I would say the thing you're going to need to do is memorize where the root notes are in whatever box you're playing. In the first box, they're simple, right? 2 E strings, and then the octave to the low E, 2 over, 2 down, 1, 2, 1, 2. is your octaves. If you didn't know that. And you get a simpler octave chord if you mute the A string. Don't play this note, just play this one. Play this one, you get the little B minor, this B octave chord. If you can mull over the A string with this finger, first finger, and mute that A note, you won't hear that string. It's a little more prominent when you play chords off the A string. The octave thing stands out a little bit more because it's got a higher pitch to it. But back to our B's. That's what you're going to need to know. Generally speaking, in this first box, it's pretty simple. You can bend the first 3 notes of the box. Try to bend them a whole step 2 frets up, a whole step 2 frets. So if you're bending this note, try to make it sound like that note by maybe playing it first. So you play those 3 notes, that's what you're bending. Now when you put your lick together, the whole thing about the lick is it's all about how you end it, right? It's kind of like a track race with the batons, right? It really doesn't matter who's leading the whole entire race. You could be last the whole way around. It really just matters who crosses first. So it's that last guy that matters most. So it's the same thing with the lick. It's that last note that matters most. And when you're in a pentatonic lick, you must land on the root note of the pattern of the scale you're in or the key you're in. So if I'm in B minor, I have no choice but to land on the B if I don't want the lick to sound crummy. If I want it to sound finished, completed, full, and in command of me sounding like I'm in command of this lick, it must end on the B. And there's the B. And the reason, because we will all do things if we know why we're doing them. If you don't know why, you might not want to do it, and you might just say, F that. But if you know why you're supposed to do something, you might do it. Like, for example, you brush your teeth because if you know that if you don't, your teeth fall out. And you can't bite teeth. So what do? You brush your teeth. Same thing. You have no choice if you want to keep your teeth. So if you want to have the lick and you want it to sound good, you have no choice when you're in pentatonic land but to land on the root. And here's why. Because you keep saying, well, tell me why, MFer. Well, I'm going to tell you. Here's why. Because the notes in this scale only support that one chord. That's right. That's what I just said. The notes of the pentatonic scale, B, D, E, F sharp, A, only support the B minor chord of B, D, F sharp, A, B minor 7. So 4 of the 5 notes of the scale make the B minor 7 chord. If we go to the E minor key and we know the notes are E, G, A, B, D, well, we know the E minor 7 chord is E, G, B, D. That's 4 of the 5 again. And the only note that's not part of the E minor chord is the A. So over here, the only note that's not part of this B minor 7 chord is the E. So 4 out of the 5 are part of the chord, which means that scale supports that chord extremely strongly, very strongly. It supports the relative major chord D, F sharp, A. That's why I say, 10% of the time you'll see a major scale pentatonic lick, but generally you don't see that because there are just other scales you would use if you wanted a D major sound, let's say. So the scale primarily is used for blues licks, which are supposed to be with the blues. You have the blues, you're down on you're down and out. So that's a minor sound. So that's why pentatonic scales, although they technically have a major side to them, they're used in the minor side. They're used in the minor setting. That's why even when you're in a major key playing the blues, you still use minor pentatonic scales. You do not use major pentatonic scales when you're in a key that's major. So if you were in the key of E major playing the blues, you would still be using the E minor pentatonic scale. So it wouldn't matter if you were in a major or minor setting, you're still using the minor pentatonic scale because that's ultimately what the scale supports. And it will support that chord in either major or minor. Because in the major scale, the dominant 7 note is in this minor scale. All those dominant 7 notes of those major chords will all be in that pentatonic scale. So again, you're going to get the whole scale to support the chord, whether it's major or minor. Now, knowing we need to land on the root, and you've now memorized where they are, you are now going to practice writing some little thing that goes there. That's about as easy as it gets. 2 notes. Right, you can go to the E because there's the E. There's the other. But you want to get back to the B because it doesn't sound like I'm finished when I sit on that E. it sounds like it still needs to go somewhere else, which it will. It will go back to the root eventually. And there you are at the root. And you're done. It's finished. You can continue from there and add to that after you land on the root. It doesn't have to be finished when you go there. It could be you land on the root, you can continue on and then go back to the root again. And on that B. Now you saw me hit a G real quickly in there. It just takes away from the pentatonic sound and gives it more of a diatonic sound. But generally speaking, you got to get to the B. So you can make so in this basic box, you could practice a lot of technique and then still practice getting to the root by using some different techniques along the way to end on the root. All right, a lot of different things you can do. You can get this guy in there if you want. Now I'll alter the scale a little bit just for some different sounds. Right there, I just left the key to go to the E minor blues scale real quick. So you can do whatever you want. But you need to get back to the root note eventually of whatever you're trying to establish. So I'll make sure that I always get back to that B. I can start wherever I want, so can you. You can even begin out of the key if you want to. Just start on C sharp, which is, just chromatically walk up. Doesn't matter as long as you end on the B. And Eddie Van Halen knew that. That's why every single chromatic thing he did always worked, because he just got back to the root note of wherever he was when he was done. And that's what made it work. So it's an easy blues, just an easy thing to do is just get back to your root. Now I'm not looking at the guitar, guys. I'm looking at the camera. If I look at the guitar, I can make the licks, more what I want them to be. Like my own, without my own, they could be more involved, I guess. Hey, there you go. Back to the B. If you do pentatonic on one string, those are the sounds. This is all B minor pentatonic scale. Some of that is not, but you can see you can just add in whatever you want later on. Now, when you're in the pentatonic scale, it's easy to remember the root notes of this box, but then you have to start learning other boxes and memorizing where those notes are. So I always tell everybody the easiest thing to do is to move back from box 1 and move to box 5, because half of box 5 is box 1. So you technically already know half of box 5. Right? Because it's the same, half of it is in box 1. So you know all this part already. So then all you have to, and the two roots are here. So now all you need to do is just check the rest of this box to see if there's any other B notes, and there is. There's one right here. right? So you got that now. So now you can be like, right? You can work on that tapping thing and hit the B note when you're done. Let them bleed if you want, like that. You can work on stuff like that. Should try to keep your guitar in tune the best you can. Now, so little things. Now you got box 5 working in there. Try little exercises. Try different shit. If you see that the strings are ringing like that, then all you got to do is figure out how to mute them with your other hand. Okay, so that you don't get them to mute anymore. Now you're not going to be doing it something that long. Most likely it'll just be a little fill. So you just need to have it muted off for a couple seconds. So that's what goes on. That's what's happening there. Is all you're doing is you're learning a new box and figuring out where the root notes are in that box. So if you connect your boxes one at a time, well, then you're only always learning half of a new box. It makes it kind of easy. Now, that's your pentatonic situation. It is pretty basic. You just stated the root. If you land on any other note, this lick is going to sound incomplete when you're in your key. So you really just find out very quickly that you just go to the root note when you're done. Now, when you're down in this area of the neck, in the open string area, and maybe you're not been playing that long and you're more comfortable down here, and then you play off the key of A minor, which is this chord A, and then you're just working off the A, C, D, E, G. And the pattern is right here, so it's close to the chords. You've even got the A chord right there. You play off the D minor next, still hitting that A. You go back to the A. You go back to the D. You make it a little more dramatic. Come to box 5. This is all basic stuff you can work on at home so you can get the same sounds out of your licks. It does help to put the chord down first because that establishes a sound for you to go off of. It gives you a reference point. what I'm saying? It really isn't that hard. And then before you know it, you got your minor blues cut out right for you. Hit the A, play a lick that ends on A, hit the D, or D, hit a lick that ends on A, go back to A, go back to A again on the note, then go to the E. Now switch to B minor because you're up a whole step. Move the chords. You move the chords out of this box into the new. This next, you move from here to here, so you move the box from here to here as well. Come back, then you bring the box back. And you can do that with power chords too, like I was just showing you. And there's a simple way to just lean on that root note all the time. Now we're going to move to a diatonic situation. If you're playing in the diatonic scales, you know your patterns, right? So you're like, yeah, I know some patterns. But what you play is random, aimless notes, and you don't always get what you like because you're playing random, aimless notes. So I'm going to show you how to direct that somewhere to organize it a little bit and give you an understanding on this, of the sense of sound. So when you're playing diatonically, you're playing in a completely different situation than in the pentatonic scale. So forget the pentatonic scales and everything you know about them. This is a brand new set of rules that you're going to have to learn by. I'll give you the basic short brush of everything, the broad stroke, and then we will, little by little, get into some detail as much as I can in this time frame we have. So you have 7 different sounds in the diatonic scales, one for each note of the scale. Each note of a diatonic scale, and a diatonic scale, by the way, is just the standard major or minor scale that you're playing in. So we'll use G major as the main source because that is the most popular key. So when you're in G major, you have different sounds. Each one of those notes in the scale, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, they all have a different sound. The most common sounds are G and E. That means rooting to the G when you're done with your lick, or rooting to the E when you're done with your lick. And for simplicity's sake, that's what we're going to do. Since this is mostly a minor channel, or a metal channel, hard rock and things like that, we're going to stay to the minor side of the key for this video, or at least for a time being, and explain how that works. Now you have to take all these patterns you learn, whichever ones you know, and you got to memorize the root note of the key you're in. So let's say you're playing in E minor, but you know this pattern that begins on A, which is the Dorian box. A lot of people know it because it's an easy pattern. There's no second finger. So if you know your Dorian box, great. And if you know where the root notes are, E, great. You only get 2 in this box. Or do you get 3, folks? How many do we get? Right, folks. Did you guys know about this one? Right? So look at this. Octave. And then back here. Same note, but it's on a different string. The pitch is slightly off. Is thinner. So you actually get 3 in this box. Alright? So you have a lot of choices, a lot of places to land when you're done with your lick. And that's what you're going to look for is E. Now you're creating a lick that ends on the E in the key of E minor. Okay? That generally means your riff is going to be around the E. Or right, G, D. Or basic stuff. So you see there that when Neil puts that song in E, the whole solo's in E minor too. He's like, so it's based around the E again because he's in the key of E minor. So you are going to do the same thing. You're going to pick a box and you're going to play around that note. You just look for the E and you play around to that and you end on it when you're done. That's all you do. Basic basic maneuvers. If you truly want to know what the E sound is in this key, you include the F sharp note in your lick so that it separates you from the key of A minor. There's the difference. It's pretty drastic. So it makes a big difference if you accidentally slip into the wrong key with hitting the wrong note. Much different because there is no power chord for this F sharp note when you're in the key of G, because there is this C sharp note is not in the key. You get a tritone. These are 3 whole steps apart, these 2 notes. And we know that a power chord is 3.5 steps. So, you can't play an F sharp power chord when you're in the key of E minor, folks. If you are, you're incorrect. You play the F note instead. That's why in Ride the Lightning and Trapped Under Ice, he doesn't hit the F chord. He doesn't hit that. He just hits the F sharp note. He doesn't hit the whole chord. All right? So if you go back and look, and I forget the riff, I'll learn it for you one day, but I don't know it offhand. But I do know that when you play it, it only uses F sharp instead of the whole thing is power chords, F, B, C, G, and then the F gets to the F sharp, and we don't see the F sharp power chord. We just see the F sharp note because they did not want to incorporate the sound of the C sharp into the song because it would remove the darkness of the C note from B to C. And the whole step here is happy. This half step is sad. So although I do not remember the Trapped Under Ice riff, if you go look it up real quickly when you're done watching this, you'll see that it just uses the F sharp note. And it's for that reason. A lot of music does that. So when you don't know, or maybe all the theory behind everything, you just see the F sharp note in the key, you might be playing an F sharp power chord thinking, I'm in the key of G, but you're actually not. You're in the next key over, which is B minor, because that is the first key that contains the C sharp. And so that's why the D major B minor key is, you'd be slipping into that sound. Meaning you're making your riff now sound like it's really in that other key, because your current key of G does not offer that sound of the F sharp power chord. So you'll see songs that just use the one note there. But back to our thing, you just want to find the root notes. Now, if you already know how to find the basic root note of a scale, well, then here's the thing you're working on. You're learning to change your modal direction. So one of the things you can do if you wanted a major sound, and I don't drift into major stuff too often, but I do teach, so I'll explain this to you real quickly. You can get different sounds if you want to cut the lick over the chord. So let's say your riff starts with an A. Well, you could use this. You can lead off with a suspended note and give this riff a direction that you're telling the listener that you're not sure where it's going to go. It's unpredictable. Now, you notice that I hit the G there. So, if I hit a G here, then this A note's going to sound like it's in the key of D major because that key contains a G. If you hit this A chord and then you resolve to the box of A major, then you're going to hit the G sharp note, and your A major chord will take on the tonality of an A major key. Versus hitting the G note. Slightly different sound. Or, let's say you're starting off on an E. E, F, G, A. So if you go to the A note when you're done, you start with, say, a D, A, B, C, D. D is the 4 from the A. That is the suspended note on the A chord. So if you were to lead in with a D note before you played the rest of your lick, starting on the A chord, then reaching for that D would give your sound something that people would not know where it's going. It would sound unpredictable versus if you went to a note in the A chord afterwards. If you go to the A chord and your next note is A, C sharp, or E, it just sounds like the chord itself. But if you started on the A and went to the D and then somewhere else afterwards, I'm sorry, you get something a little more creative. So when you hit a chord, you can start with a suspended note to lead off with a different type of sound than the standard sound you'd get if you led off with a note that's in the chord, and that is another way to alter your sound a little bit. Another thing you can do is you can practice landing on the different notes of a scale to see what the sound's going to be like. So you pick one scale box or one area, and you keep ending the same lick on different notes or a note or two that's different to see what that same lick sounds like when you have a slightly different ending on it. So if you had a lick that went, right, you get an idea of where you are. So you go, I don't like that. Well, that means when you're in the B minor scale, you're telling yourself you don't like ending on the E. So look at the key. E is a Dorian note. It's not a very dark note. So maybe that's why you don't like landing there. See, I like the root, but to add a little darkness in, I back up to the raised seventh instead, the major seven, because in the key of B major, the seven would really be an A sharp. So in B minor, we have to flat it to make it A. So I keep it raised, we say, as A sharp for the key of B major. So now I have the B harmonic minor lick. Oh. Normally when I use that practice lick, I do a forward-backward thing like this. I'm not the best at these hammer-ons, or the pull-offs rather. I don't do straight pull-offs all the time. But that's something you can always work on too. I'm not real big on the pull-off thing. I like picking better. And you can just play around with different sounds. Now that's all B minor. But you can move that to E minor if you just take out the C sharps and replace them with C's. So when you're one key away, when you're playing in one key, you're only one note away from the next key. So if you just switch out that one note, well, now you're moving from key to key. In this case, I'm moving from E minor to B minor if I just replace the C note with a C sharp. So the same lick that's in E minor going can now take out the C note and put a B minor, a C sharp note in and be in the key of B minor. You can hear the difference. It really depends on what you want. In certain situations, I want this. But if I really had the C chord in the riff, then you'd want the C note. Learn all your B's and C's, E's and F's, and you'll learn the neck a lot easier. There you go, folks. That is the beginning of some simpler ways that you can start using the endings on your notes, picking the right note, I should say, to make your lick sound complete. Because if you don't end the note right, It's kind of like winning 3/4 of the race and losing at the end. It really doesn't matter if you led the race. It only matters if you win the race. How many times you watch NASCAR and the guy that wins only led for like 3 laps in the whole entire race, right? It's the perfect example of all that. So it really doesn't matter what you're doing in between. People don't remember what you're playing, by the way, when you're live until the last note. If that last note is off, everything you did before it becomes a wash. Nobody remembers that. They hang on to that note you made the mistake on. They remember that lousy ending, even though you might have played a beautiful piece. So that last note, that ending is where it all comes together. It's just like blowing the fourth quarter lead with 2 seconds left, or like scoring trying to score that last run and getting called out for the final out. It's all the same thing. It just doesn't matter until the very, very end. And you got to think like that when you're cutting a lick. So as great as your music is and as happy as you like your stuff, if you don't end it right, it bombs. The same thing with a song. I can't tell you how many times I see local bands that can't end the song right because the last note isn't the correct note. Guys, use the root notes like I'm showing them to you. Reach for other notes and discover the sounds because in diatonic land, every note's a root note if you plan around that note. And we will get more into that in other videos. But these are just some basic ways. If you have no idea how to write a lick or you're just struggling to get new sound, some of these ways might benefit you. If you're new to guitar, all these ways will benefit you. And they also explain a lot of things to people who are wondering how do people get the sounds they get. Because I'm playing the same scale, but I can't get the sound. Well, now hopefully you understand a little bit about how to get that. And if I can help you in another video, great. That's what I'm trying to do is help everybody out. Thanks for watching my channel. Thanks for giving me your time. I'll see you in another video.